Okay, right, so this is a little look at how to set up your laser. Mainly focused at club sailors, people who are new to racing or reasonably experienced racing, but they just want to get their laser working a little bit better. So I'm going to have a look across my laser, look at how I set up the controls, what to look for, and then just show a few sort of common mistakes from which I've seen a lot when I'm coaching, to try to get everybody's boat set up that little bit better. Right, first of all, I'm going to start off at the back of the boat. So I'm going to start off here with the rudder. So before I put it on, just going to have a little look at how to hold it down. So when you're sailing a laser, really important that the rudder is all the way down like this. So got to make sure right in there, if you can see, the rudder blade should be right against this little bit in the stock. In order for that to happen, if I can just show you how this is threaded, it goes over the top of this and then behind this little bit in there. Hopefully that comes up well. Really important to get it behind your pull down rope, behind that bit there. Okay, once you're there, next step is to fashion something that's going to, this pull down rope, get it really tight. So here I've got a little 2-to-1 made with a loop in the rope into the cleat, so I can pull this really tight, and that's going to hold the rudder down. So okay, now a quick look at the Traveller, bit of an overview. What you want it is to be pretty tight so it doesn't lift up much. However, not so much that it interferes with the tiller and you can't steer. So this should move smoothly, and you should also have the Traveller being able to pass over the top without too much difficulty. Maybe you loosen it a bit light winds, tighten it a bit in strong winds. Okay, there's a few things that are useful to look at to stop it lifting up and get it tight. The first one is the rope. This is 6mm Dyneema rope, so very low stretch. What I've also done here is this gap here is pretty minimal, so it's quite a small triangle. As that triangle gets bigger, it's harder to get the tension. So if we come in here, you can hopefully see how this is done. Just very simply here, it's just a bowline and then the rope wrapped around there before going forwards to the cleat. Right, so moving a little bit further forward again, I'm going to have a quick look at the main sheet. Really important your main sheet runs smoothly. I use quite a thin rope. I think it's 5.5 or 6mm. It's the laser standard one. I find it runs really well. I think Rooster do a nice one as well. But just a little look at how I tie it off and the length you want. So first of all, if I come down to the cockpit, I've got this old style hark and ratchet block, which I love because it's got really easy on off. Okay, but what I do is I tie the base of my main sheet, actually goes, hopefully that comes out, through the base of the main sheet block, the top of the toe strap, and I tie a knot in it. That means it's very difficult to lose your main sheet, which is definitely a good thing. It also keeps it in the boat, and I find it stops it getting tangled around my feet. Okay, so just going further forward, right, there's your loop middle of the boom. That's to stop it getting caught around your neck. Make sure you put it through there. And then at the back, there is a bowline just at the top of the block. So if I pull this in, reason it's threaded like this is so when you've got the main sheet in tight, you can get block to block like that. So you can see the figure of 8 knot pops through the front of that top block. Right, so the last little bit I want to look at is how far you let your main sheet out. So really, well, there's about 90 degrees. Then you want your boom to go a little bit beyond 90 degrees, but not much. This is just so in light winds, you can help keep the boom out, plus occasionally running by the lee, you might want to let it that far out. Definitely doesn't need to go any further than this. So in the cockpit, I've got a stopper knot tied there to stop it going out any further, and then I've got the minimum amount of rope so I can pull it in, or start pulling it in from that furthest out. So next I want to have a quick look at the outhaul and downhaul. But before I do that in great detail, I just want to show you what I've got in my cockpit. Again, I was saying, rope just gets caught around your feet, it gets in the dagger board, it's a pain. Have as little as possible. I really like to just trim my ropes as short as I can. All I need is a little bowline for pulling them on. When they're off, that loop can be right up against the cleat. Why have more rope? Onto the outhaul first. Just going to have a quick look at this, starting at the back. So from the back, I've got single block, and then I've got some 3mm Dyneema that runs through around this bullseye at the end, and in the end of the rope I've got a loop. This goes through the sail, back along the boom, through the bullseye, and then this loop just goes over the end of the boom. Very simple, and most importantly for me, there's no hooks. I hate hooks. Hooks break and get caught in things, so I try to avoid all hooks on my boat. Right, so if I grab this camera off, let's just move a little bit further forward and just show you the rest of it. I've just got one end tied off to the cleat, round the block, and that just goes back to the front of the boom. Really simple. It's only, what is that, a 4-to-1 purchase. I find that's enough for me for club racing. You can put more in if you want. Right, last little bit, have a little look at the elastic. So I quite like the way that this works. So it comes block through the eye of the boom, and then comes back, and I secure it in that cleat. I've just taken it out, but put that back in again, so that gets secured into the cleat, and I find that works really well. Okay, now moving to the front, the other control line that I looked at was the downhaul. Again, I opt for a really simple setup. It's got to work. So just to do a quick look at this, it's got a primary line just here, which runs up through the sail and then down to this block here. Okay, and it's really important that this block is close to this eye here, so you get the maximum amount of travel. And here there's a 3-to-1 system. I've got a bit of rope here that mounts a block on there. This is minimum you need, and that makes it a 6-to-1. Right, and the last of the major controls is the kicker. Most important control on a laser, so really important it works well. Okay, so this, I use the Harken kicker. There isn't another one that works well. Get this, just a few key things when setting it up. First of all, this primary line, where this block is, it must be towards right at the top when the kicker's off. If it's down here, you just don't have enough travel when you're putting it on. So as I pull the kicker on, see that block moving down. Okay, if it starts here, you run out of room. So spend a few minutes checking your primary line is the right length. Next, a little tip on this secondary line here. I've got a handle. This handle is right at the block in the off position. That means it's easy to grab, pull on. You don't end up in the wrong place when your kicker's on. Okay, last little thing I've got a length of rope from the handle, this tail end. You can tie that to the top of your dagger board when you're sailing. Okay, so that was a quick overview of how I personally set my laser up. I think it's a reasonably good model. There is quite a few controls that you can make a bit more complicated, but for club racing around a lake, I find this works really well. Just a few things to point out as a general overview. Just if anything isn't working properly, just have a look why. So what you want is all your ropes should be the right length and run smoothly. A common problem I see is just ropes getting old and tired, starting to go. As soon as they get a little bit bobbly and hairy and stiff, they just don't run as smoothly. So do yourself a favour, spend a few pounds, buy some new rope. Right, hopefully that's been useful. If any questions, if you'd like me to have a look at any particular controls in a bit more detail, put a comment